I got an A star in maths and an A in further maths, and I got both predicted A stars in my mock exams in year 13, and this video is an ultimate guide to getting the best grade in both maths and further maths from my own personal experience. Personally, I didn't get any guidance or any roadmap for maths and further maths, and I got both of these grades pretty much by myself. And it's a long story, but I actually nearly got 100% in both my maths and further maths mocks, and then I kind of fell off by getting an A star in maths and an A in further maths. And this video will tell you not only how to get good grades, but also how to sustain good grades so you don't fall off like I did in my actual exams. Before I get into this entire guide, I am a first year university student here at UCL, one of the best universities in the world, but I wasn't always like this. I was quite fat and I was stupid beforehand, and I didn't really get that good grades in the past. However, back like a year or two ago, I went through a massive transformation in both my productivity and fitness, and now I go to one of the best universities in the world. I got pretty good grades in my A levels, in pretty good grades in my GCSEs, all 8s and 9s, and now I'm in pretty good shape as well. So if you want to go through a similar productivity and fitness journey, click on the subscribe button down below. So for sixth forms or my college experience, I went to one of the best grammar schools, or one of the best schools in the entire UK. So this school needed a entrance exam for you to get into because of how high it was in the rankings. I think it was top 10 schools in the entire UK and top 3 for maths alone. So when I went to this school, pretty much everyone was good at maths. Everyone had this kind of liking for maths, and the teachers recognized that as well. When I started year 12, halfway through the first year of A levels, all of my teachers from all 3 sets, so there were 3 sets for further maths, imagine that, there was 95 people taking further maths in my entire year. Most schools only have 4. Our school had 95 or something crazy like that, or 70. There were 3 sets. But they got everyone who was taking maths and further maths, and they sat them in a room, and they said that this cohort or this year had the lowest results overall. So everyone in the end of topic tests was getting lower than the previous years comparatively. And this was bad for the school because of course this is a big prestigious school, and they want very, very good grades. They want their students to get very, very good grades. And I remember my teacher saying something very specific that would kind of left me thinking after. And they said something like, when you do further maths A level, when you do maths A level, you should be prepared to work very, very hard. You should be looking at the people around you and be prepared to work harder than your peers. It's kind of like a blink and you miss it kind of statement. Everyone else was just yeah, all you have to do is work hard. But at that moment, at that microsecond, I realized I didn't actually know what that meant. I didn't know what working hard meant. And over the course of year 12 and year 13, I think my experiences has made me understand that working hard in the traditional sense is too vague, right? Because if you just tell people to work hard, there's a mass disparity that happens where some people get A stars and some people get C's. But objectively, in their own mind, they all thought they worked hard, right? If you go ask a person who got a B in further maths and you go ask someone who got an A star in further maths, what you did for the exam result, they both would have said they worked pretty hard. They studied for long. How is one person getting an B and how is one person getting an A star consistently? And that is what this video will help you with. If you're watching this video, I'm assuming that you're in the position that you actually want to get the good grade. You understand that you have the desire for the good grade in maths or further maths. But all of the other videos on this topic, or all of the other advice that you find online, is kind of vague. It's not specific enough. They just say, oh, you have to prepare to work hard. Further maths is really, really hard. But no one actually tells you what differentiates from people. And this guide will help you hopefully clarify that, and also give you the perfect framework so you can get an A star in your actual exam. I guarantee you, this is my guarantee to you, if you do all of these steps in the video properly and you do them correctly, you will get an A star in both maths and further maths. This is the tangible goal you can get from this video. And now you may be saying, oh no, but I didn't get an A star in further maths, I got an A. That is because, as I'll explain later on in this video, I didn't really listen to some of these rules that I'm going to discuss in the video going forward. So this is like the tangible guarantee I'm guaranteeing you. If you follow all of the steps in this video correctly and you work hard in the specific way that I lay out for you, you will, I guarantee you, get an A star in both maths and further maths. So the first step of guaranteeing an A star in maths or further maths is to identify and do the greatest leverage activities. Before I get into this point, I want to tell you a bit of a story. I was in second set further maths for year 12, right? So like all of these people in my class had all got 9s in GCSE and maths. I think for my school you had to get a 9 to take further maths at A level. By the way, this video is both a guide for A level maths and further maths. They're both basically the same thing. You revise for both of them pretty much the same way. But in my maths class, how it worked was there were the people at the front, the people in the middle, and the people at the back. And in my school specifically, we were given like digital devices. We were given like iPads to write on and make notes on, because it's better to sync with the school system or something like that. Like it's easier to sync with Microsoft if you have everything in OneNote, if you make all your notes in OneNote. And I remember something like 40% of the class wouldn't even listen to the teacher at all. I was sitting in the middle row, so I could see people in the front, and I could also see people like beside me, and like they were all just doing random stuff on their iPads. Some people were like watching YouTube, some people were playing Brawl Stars. This is by the way one of the best schools in the entire UK. Like people pay thousands of pounds of tuition. I hope their kids try to get into school. Like this has a massive Oxford acceptance rate and everything. But in the class, like 40% of people just didn't listen. Like I remember like 20% of the people were just playing Brawl Stars or like Clash Royale or something on their iPads. The other 20 were just doing some random stuff. But even though they didn't listen in lesson, they still got A stars consistently in their end of topic test. I remember this one person specifically. He didn't listen in any class. He just played Clash Royale every single day. He would always just play Clash Royale in lesson. Never listened, never did any work. The teacher was always annoyed with him, but he still got an A star. And that is because all work is not created the same. If you invest your energy into doing some work, it is objectively less useful than doing other work when it comes to achieving any sort of goal. In this case, passively learning and passively just retaining the information from the lesson wasn't actually that useful. It won't get you a higher grade if you just listen and listen. The highest leverage activity or the highest return on investment activity that you can do when it comes to maths or further maths is by doing practice questions or doing practice papers. My guess is that the people who got A stars by just like randomly messing about in class went home and did some kind of practice or some kind of synthesized systematic way of practicing the questions and did that consistently, which caused them to get a higher grade. And it wasn't like sorry, my accommodation fire alarm just went off. But understanding this principle is so important for you to get the goal. If you invest 5 hours or 3 hours into reading notes or reading from a textbook or learning or making notes, it is objectively less useful than investing that 3 hours into doing practice questions. Now, you may say, but to do the practice questions, I need to do the notes. Okay, that is objectively true. However, people who use that excuse spend too much time learning and like randomly like watching YouTube videos and then don't spend that time doing the actual practice questions. So that's number one. That's the first lesson that I want you to instill in yourself. If you do the highest, greatest leverage activity, you will gain more result. By this I mean, your only revision source or your main revision source should just be doing practice questions and practice papers. Now this is like common knowledge. All of your teachers are going to say that. However, not many people are actually going to implement it. Going through the A-level journey that I've been on, I've been through year 12, I've been through year 13. Everyone says, oh, I'm going to do practice questions. Oh, you just have to do practice questions. But in reality, in your actual deep like work sessions, not many people actually do the practice question because it's harder than just watching the video. People say they watch the video. People say they do the practice question, but in reality, they just watch the video. They watch TL Math. They watch Bison Maths. They like read the textbook. More so than actually doing the implementation of the practice paper. So I'm going to give you a number that if you do this many practice questions or if you do this many past papers, a tangible number, that is all you need to do to get an A star. And that is, if you go on the website Physics and Math Tutor, by the way, this is the best website for finding notes on further maths or like finding practice papers on further maths. If you go and do all of the topic questions and then you do every single practice paper for your exam board and like the surrounding exam boards, all of the other exam boards for further maths, that is enough for you to get an A star. Let me repeat that again. If you do every single practice paper, every single practice question on Physics and Maths Tutor, and then do every single practice paper, like practice paper for AS and A level maths, that is all you need for an A star in further maths. If you do all of these papers and you do them well, and you like synthesize the information, you learn from the question, like you learn where you went wrong, you will get an A star in further maths. That is all the work you have to do. Many people overcomplicate it. I know not many people give you a number because they're scared that like, oh, like if you do all the questions, you still may like mess up in the exam. But that's not like the problem of doing the question. That's a problem of performance anxiety, which I'll get on later on in this video, of like how you actually perform well in the exam. But in reality, like knowledge and application wise, all you need to do is all of the practice papers for further maths and all of the physics and maths tutor questions. If you do all of them, you're like, you have all of the knowledge you need to know for getting an A star in further maths. So for example, if I'm doing roots of polynomials, it's another topic in further maths. All I do is go to physics and maths tutor, do all of the practice questions in that one, then like learn from that, of course, then go on to the AS or A level questions for that specific topic, do all of them, and that is all the information you pretty much need for getting good in that one topic. That's it. That's all you need to do. Now, hopefully, once I've clarified that, hopefully it's way less scary, right? If all you have to do is the physics and maths tutor stuff and then pass papers, that's pretty much it, right? Now, whether you watch TL Maths, whether you read the textbook for information, shouldn't really be counted as work. What counts as work, what counts as like actual work towards further maths, is just doing practice papers and practice questions. The second step to getting an A star in further maths, and this is an important topic, so don't skim over this, is identity. Now, before you skip over this topic, because how is this going to help me? Your identity, or the way you see yourself, will affect how well or how confident you are in a particular question. When it comes to something like further maths, you have to think, like you actually have, it's one of those subjects where you actually have to think in the exam, and how you think is affected by your identity. If you see yourself as someone who's naturally not good at further maths, or naturally not good at maths, or you think, you have the belief system that other people are better, like intellectually or naturally better than you at maths, you will struggle on the questions that require you to think outside of the box. Because really think about it, right? If you get stuck on a specific part of a question, imagine you get stuck on like a differentiation question. The difference between an A star student, someone who gets full marks on the question, and then someone who just like gets 0 marks on the question or doesn't get any further, it's just in the microsecond where the person who sees himself as a better mathematician will just continue to persevere on the question, right? So imagine like someone sees himself as an A star student, that all their life that the teachers have told them that they are an A star student, they're really good at maths. When they do the question, they're gonna keep on looking for ways to get around like the differentiation, or they're gonna, if it's a differential equation question, they're gonna think of like the different complementary function you need to use for the question. They're gonna like keep on just ruminating over that, keep on generating ideas, because they see like in their mind they see themselves as a good A star student, and therefore they shouldn't struggle with this type of problem, and therefore that pushes them to seek the hard bit of the question and keep on going. However, if you see someone who thinks they're a C student, or thinks they're like a bad student and they're not that good at maths, when they get to the hard bit of the question, that is just going to reinforce their already pre-existing belief of being a bad student, and they're going to be like, oh, like I can't do this anyway, like I'm a bad student, and they're just not going to continue with the question. And now you may think that isn't you, right? You may think that no, I think I'm a good student, but how you respond isn't like, it's not there in your brain, like it's subconscious. How you feel about that is subconscious. You're gonna subconsciously think, oh, I can't do this because I'm a bad student, and then you're gonna just stop continuing on for the question. So how you see yourself, or your identity, is very, very important for a hard subject like further maths. And the way you change your identity isn't as hard as it seems. All you have to do is kind of like tell yourself in like a cringe way. You just have to tell yourself before you go and do a topic test, or before you do a practice paper, that I am an A star student. Like even if you're getting B's right now, just tell yourself, oh, this is just a temporary thing. I am an A star student. Just visualize yourself getting an A star. I know visualizations is a very, very powerful way of reinforcing a specific type of identity. If you want to learn more about how you think better and how you see yourself as a better student, I recommend the book The Magic of Thinking Big. I have a full guide on all the parts of that book in my channel somewhere, but that's a very, very good book for seeing yourself and identity and achieving goals. But how you see yourself in the subject, or your identity that you hold, is very, very important for getting a good grade in further maths. third step to getting an A star in further maths is to beat performance anxiety. Performance anxiety is the third key component that causes people to mess up in exams. Like, you've probably heard the story of people who've been really ready for further maths exams. They've done all the questions, they know all the content, but then when they get into the exam and they start doing the practice paper, they just freeze up. Maybe you've experienced this before. In subjects, you just get in the exam and then you freeze up. And like people say, oh, like I've just had a bad day, or I've just messed up. Or on a deeper level, I just don't like when I can't control things, and like when people just freeze up or they've just had a bad day. It's kind of annoying when I used to have those experiences because I couldn't control it. And now I've realized, after doing some research into the subject, that this is something called performance anxiety, and it's something that athletes or someone like people who need to perform for their work get into all the time. So performance anxiety is just like when you don't get into the correct flow state and then you kind of like freeze up in the exam, and that's what causes people to like panic or just take irrational decisions in their exams that cause them to get the bad grade. Now this is a very real thing, and there are 2 ways to stop this, and I want you to do these 2 things and you will pretty much consistently beat performance anxiety. The first one is meditation. Now before you skip over this section, I promise you, if you meditate consistently, you will not have performance anxiety. Think about like when you get too overwhelmed in a test, when you get like too anxious in the test, really think about what's happening in that one micro moment. When you overthink about a test, what is happening? In the seconds that you're overthinking or you're panicking, you're not concentrating on the actual question. When you concentrate on the question, you're not thinking about like the fact that your parents are going to deport you back to your home country if you fail this exam, or you're not thinking about like the time of the exam. You're not thinking about anything else. You're just focusing on the question at hand. Like, so in this microsecond, it's a question of focus. You're not focusing on the question, you're thinking about something random else which is causing you to panic in the exam. Now meditation is the skill of focusing on one singular point. When you meditate, you focus on like your breath or something. Again, this is nothing like spiritual. It's just like a method you do. When you meditate, you focus on your breath, and you just learn to, whenever your mind diverts from your breath, you just refocus on your breath. Now, when you develop a consistent meditation habit, what's going to happen is your performance anxiety will go down, because every time you focus on a question, you're going to have the thought that, oh, like I may fail this exam. But you're just going to, like, you're not going to indulge in it. You're just going to refocus your mind back to the question. And over time, you're going to beat performance anxiety, because you're just not going to indulge in these thoughts and then be way more present in the question and in the exam at hand. Now this is a long-term thing. It's going to take about like 2 months for you to actually see effects of this in your day-to-day life. To meditate consistently, all you need to do is download a free app called Medito on the App Store, and then just follow their course. If you follow their course, you have like a 5-minute daily session, and if you just meditate for like 5 to 10 minutes every day, just like it's like going to the gym for your brain. You just focus on your breath, keep on focusing on your breath, and then every time you think about something else random, you just refocus on your breath, and over time that like muscle of, or like the muscle of focusing on stuff gets better. The second thing is to get into the flow state. Now the flow state is a specific state that you get in whenever you get into exams, or whenever you do something intellectual or hard, wherein you kind of merge with the activity. Athletes have this all the time, where they're in this zone where you just basically have no thoughts. You're just concentrated on one thing, and just that one thing, and you're not concentrated on anything else. You've probably experienced the flow state in exams where you've put your head down, you've just done the exam, you look up and like 2 hours have passed, or the entire exam has passed. In those 2 hours, you are in the flow state. You know, the term time flies when you're having fun comes from the flow state, because you kind of like merged, like when you talk to your friends, or when you do something that's really fun, you're merged within the activity, which causes you to not like be aware of the time. So you kind of like merge with the activity. You don't really have any other thoughts, and that is the state we want to get into in the exam. So whenever you get into the exam, you don't want to be overthinking about something random. You just want to do the exam. You just want to be present in the questions. And the way you do this, the best way to get into the flow state. But by the way, if you want to learn more about the flow state, read the book Flow by Mikhail. I can't pronounce the second name, but this is a very, very good book of exactly how the flow state works and how you get into it. But in exam, like specifically for exams, what you need to do is whenever you do the paper, whenever you do any type of practice question, you basically need to have the same kind of ritual that primes your brain for the flow state. So for me, it was I'd have the same pencil case, I would have the same pens, and I would just like, before the exam, I'd always like I would always visualize me getting a good grade in the practice paper. That would be my ritual. I would have my like clear pencil case, this one. I'd have my clear pencil case, I would take out my uni ball pen, and then I would just think about me getting a good grade in the topic test or the practice paper. And what happens is once you build this ritual, once you build this set habit you do before you do every practice paper or before you do every mock exam, this primes your brain. This gets your brain ready for the flow state. It's just basically telling your brain that, okay, now I need to get back in the zone, and then now is the time to perform, basically. If you do these two things, you will pretty significantly decrease performance anxiety. You have way less instances of you freezing up, or if not any instances of you freezing up in exams, and you're going to perform way better than other people who just like randomly go into exams. So just to repeat, the first one is meditate consistently, and the second one is to get into the flow state. Now we've gone over the general kind of tips that you need to do to get an A star in either maths or further maths A level, which are, you have to identify the highest ROI or the greatest leverage activities and do them, which are basically practice papers, practice questions. The second one is changing your identity to see yourself as a better mathematician. And the third one is to get into the flow state and decrease performance anxiety by meditating. Now we're going to go into specific weird pieces of advice that have really, really helped me to get better in exam. Before I get into the specific pieces of advice, in like year 13, before my actual exams, I got 95% in my further maths mock papers and like 92% in my maths A level papers. So I was literally nearly getting 100% in both maths and further maths. But in my actual exam, I kind of fell off. Now, it's a long story, and I explain it in more detail in my How My Ego Cost Me My A-Levels video. But basically, to do, like, remember I said the amount of practice papers you needed to do to get an A star in further maths. To do those consistently and to do them well, you need to have a predictable set of work hours every single day. That's how productivity works. You need to have a block of time every single day where you sit down and you do some deep, concentrated work without any distractions. Now I had this in the morning. I would get up every single day around 6 o'clock, 5 or 6 o'clock, and would work for about 2, maybe at a stretch 2.5, 3 hours before school for like my A levels, and then I would go to school, and then I would just like go to the gym after. But what had happened is, after I built this up, after I did this consistently, I built this up, I got the A star in maths, I got all of the A stars in all my subjects. I stopped respecting this habit. I stopped getting up early. I stopped working consistently in the morning, and then I fell off because of that. The only reason I fell off back to an A star in maths and A in further maths is because of the momentum of these previous months of me getting up early and working consistently. I guarantee you that if I didn't do this beforehand, I reckon I would have got lower in my actual exams, because I didn't really respect the habit of waking up and working consistently. It's kind of a long story, but waking up early and working consistently or doing deep work is the greatest productivity tactic ever created. Like, it's been proven that this is 100% one of the, like, literally the greatest habit you can have for your productivity end of. If you want to get good grades, if you want to like build a business, waking up early and doing deep concentrated work towards your goals is the best kind of habit you can install. And me and my team have a community called the Deep Work Club, which will help you get up early and hold you accountable. So back in year 13, if I would have been in this community, or if I would have been in a similar community, they would have held me accountable, and I would have been more motivated to wake up in the morning, because we have like a daily call system in the community where in everyone's hours are logged. We like push our members to wake up early. We tell you exactly what work you need to do. We hold you accountable. There's like a leaderboard where you compete for the amount of work you do amongst your other peers who are also like very productive people. So if you're interested in joining a community that will hold you accountable for the amount of work you do in the morning. It will help you install the system of getting up early and doing deep work in the morning. There's like a link in the bio which is like a waiting list for this community. I personally really recommend it if you can join, down below. But back to the specific pieces of advice. The first specific piece of advice that would have really helped me is having a mistakes document throughout my A-levels. So a mistakes document is something I had seen first in a guy named Ray Amjad's video. He's like a Cambridge physicist or something. And he said that whenever he did practice questions or whenever he did practice papers, he would have a document when he would mark it, and he would just like write mistakes he would do, or common mistakes in this document, and then read it before he did a practice paper. Now, I started doing this in year 12, but then I kind of like fell off. I just disrespected it. I was like, oh, I don't really need this. I can just like do this with, I can just get an A-star without for this mistakes document. But in reality, I wished I had a specific like Word document or Google document that had all of the common mistakes that I normally do. So before I did an exam, I can like look out for these mistakes. So for example, I remember I always used to forget the top part of an integral, like top part of the like integral sign. I don't know, it was just some like a weird mistake I used to do. But if I would have put that in a mistakes document, I could have read that mistake before I did the practice paper and then looked out for that in the actual exam. So what I would recommend you to do is just to have a document wherein it has all of the different like topics you do in further maths, and then like a general section, and then every time you do like a practice paper or every time you do a practice question, if it's a mistake that comes up more than once or twice, you just put it in this mistake document so you don't make it for future reference. I recommend you do this for every subject. Like this, I've never heard this revision tactic or study tactic ever before, but I really think it could be very useful if you just have a massive document of all the mistakes that you commonly make, so you don't make them for the future like actual exam time. The second specific piece of advice that I want to give you is that for further maths specifically, depth doesn't matter. So this is a bit of a controversial one, but I really think it could help a lot of people, and it would have helped me. Whenever you do like when you're introduced topics in further maths, so for example, if I'm introduced something like matrices in itself is a very like deep, like huge depth worthy like topic. There is so much you can do in it in matrices. You can go do linear regression, you can do differential equations, there's physics uses for matrices, there's so many uses for matrices. You can like plot with matrices, it's insane, right? That's just the nature of the topic of matrices. People do their entire like university PhD on matrices. However, for further maths specifically, you have to learn, like you need to learn about matrices, but you need to learn about matrices specifically for the exam. And therefore depth, like going more in depth or learning a lot about matrices, won't help you with your grade. That's something I kind of learned the hard way, because I went like, it's super depth. I did so much research for matrices, I did so much research for like vectors, and all my friends, like some of my friends did as well, and we all got bad grades in the end of topics tests because we just went in too much depth and we didn't learn that specifically for the exam. And this goes back to my first point, which is you need to do the highest leverage activity, which is just doing practice papers or practice questions for matrices. If I have a topic in further maths, I'm not going to go into Wikipedia and try to learn so much about it. That's not what you want to do. That may actually take you away from your goal of getting an A-star. On the contrary, if you just do that and apply it to like the specific exam board or like what the exam wants from that topic, you're much more likely to get an A-star in the specific topic, or you will get an A-star in the specific topic. For matrices, if I just learned about like basic matrix operations, how to transpose a matrix, 3x3 matrices, finding the invariant, like all of them, and just applied it for the specific exam board, I would have gotten so much better if I just didn't go in so much depth for the specific topic. So I know this is a really random, I'm telling you not to go and do more research, but it's a mistake that I see so many times in my own personal experience, where people just go too much in depth in one topic and then forget that you're actually like the goal of this is to get a good grade in further maths or good grade in maths, and that is kind of distracting from the goal. The third piece of specific advice that I want to give to you is to do everything until it feels boring. Now, this is a weird mantra I want you to have for maths or further maths, A-level, any topic, wherein the way you know that you've mastered a specific topic, the way you know that you're good enough for a specific topic, you have enough knowledge or application for the specific topic, is the specific feeling of it feeling boring when you're doing the paper. So if you're like excited, you want to have like the excited feeling or like the anxious kind of feeling when it comes to topics. But when you've done enough practice papers, or when you've done enough practice questions, you're gonna feel bored. You're just gonna do all of them. For example, like I remember doing first order differential equations so many times that it just felt boring, and then at that point I've kind of like maxed out my level, my skill level, so I should have concentrated on something else, but I just kept on doing first order differential equations even if it felt like boring, and even if I just got like 100% each time, I would just always just make the excuse of doing more first order differential equations because it just like it felt productive, but it actually wasn't. When a specific topic feels boring, or when you've done enough practice questions for it to feel boring, go on to something else. Like that is your brain telling you that you don't need to do it anymore because you've already got 100% on every question. Like I don't want you to take this and just not do enough work for a specific topic, but like when the topic feels boring or when it feels repetitive, that's a good indication that you already know the topic and you've kind of like maxed out and you don't really need to go in that much depth. The fourth piece of advice that I want to give you is to focus on optional modules in further maths. So the reason I kind of fell off from further maths as well is because I didn't focus on optional modules when I was doing my revision. So how my school had structured it is we would do all of the pure maths in year 12 and the beginning half of year 13, and then for the end of year 13 we would do like the two optional modules I did, which was discrete and stats. We would dedicate half and half, but in my like personal experience I dedicated too much time for pure and not enough for statistics and discrete. Just because you're doing something at the end of year 13, it doesn't mean that the first half is more important. In reality, all of it's important for the grade. So what if I could go back, I would tell myself to focus on discrete maths and statistics the same that I'm like focusing on pure maths itself. Again, this goes back to doing practice papers and practice questions on the specific topic. But when it came to doing the practice questions at the end of year 13, I would just do far too many pure ones, because even though it felt like boring and repetitive compared to doing enough discrete maths and statistics, which also caused like my downfall because I didn't like allocate time between the three main components enough. So focus on all three components of further maths, or all three modules, pretty equally. The last piece of specific advice, and probably the most important that I want to give you, is to do everything in timed conditions. If I could go back, I would tell myself to do every single practice paper I did, every single practice question I did in a timed setting. And the reason you want to do it in a timed setting is because further maths is inherently a time intensive subject. You're not going to get so much time to think and like ruminate over a question for that long, and therefore you want to get good at the skill of performing or thinking under time condition. For example, if I'm doing like a 3x3 matrix question, if at home I like picked up the 3x3 matrix and I started calculating the inverse by myself by hand, I could do that at home. However, I can't do that in the actual exam. So therefore, like not practicing under time in my house is kind of useless, because like I can't do the inverse of a 3x3 matrix by hand in an actual exam because it just takes too much time. So what I wish I had done going back is done every single practice paper, every single like practice question I've ever done in further maths, I would do it in timed conditions, because timed conditions is what the actual exam will be like. So do everything, all your practice, like everything, in a timed sort of setting. Don't kind of like ruminate, don't do a past paper and then just like leave for half an hour and then come back and then do the other half of the paper in like your own time. You have to time everything because it creates the skill of performing, doing maths under stress. Hopefully now you've got an almost comprehensive guide on what exactly you need to do to get an A star in both maths and further maths. All of these principles apply for maths and further maths. If you implement all of these consistently and you have like a predictable deep work routine, by the way, like the deep work clubs in the bio down below will help you work consistently if that's something you struggle with. But if you do that consistently and you understand the principles from this video, you understand what high leverage activities are, you understand about identity, you understand about performance anxiety, and you implement all of the specific pieces of advice I've given you, and you do that, well, you will get an A star in the actual exam. I have no doubt about it. This is the most tangible framework that I can give you for both maths and further maths, and I really hope you implement these lessons and get a good grade in the actual exam. If you want to see other videos on productivity and fitness and how you balance the two, and also business on this channel, click on the subscribe button down below, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching. The run.